Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. Virat Kohli has not been selected for the upcoming tour of West Indies. Now, there is no clarity from the BCCI on whether Virat has been dropped or whether he's been rested. Now, you remember he did not play in the first one-dayer against England because of a groin injury. But he's playing tonight in the second one-dayer, presumably having recovered from that injury. The larger question is this. On current form, is there a place for Virat Kohli in Team India, particularly in T20s where youngsters are literally knocking on the door of his place? Or should he have to, like more illustrious peers and seniors have done before him, should he have to go back to domestic cricket and earn his chops all over again? All right, just to put that into perspective, Virat Kohli's current form in the current year, in the last 1 year, as opposed to his career average. Take a look at his career average in Tests, 49.5. That means he's right up there in the pantheon of greats. But look at 2022, it's just 31. And in the last 1 year, it's under 30. In one-dayers, again, this is legendary. His total career one-day average is close to 60. It's unbelievable. It's staggering numbers. But look at this. It's less than half, just 23 in the calendar year 2022. In the last 1 year, 23.24. In T20s, again, people say Virat Kohli's game is not suited for T20s anymore. His career T20 average is 50. That means he's a damn good T20 player, no question about it. But look at these two stats. In 2022, an average of just 20. Again, less than half of his career average. And in the last 1 year, again, exactly half of what his career average is. So this is where the problem is. His form in all three formats, in Tests, in one-dayers, in T20s, has plummeted from the very high standards he has set for himself throughout his career. Now, just to take you through what are the various factors that are at play here. Number one, there has been, like I showed you a moment ago, a massive dip in his personal form in 2022 and in fact in the last 1 year or so. The second problem is there are unselected youngsters, the likes of Suryakumar Yadav, Deepak Hooda, Sanju Samson, Ishan Kishan, you name it, they're all knocking on the door for that spot. Now, in the last international century that Virat Kohli had was in November of 2019. That seems almost like a lifetime ago. His average in the last 1 year has dipped below 30 in all formats, Tests, one-dayers and T20s. Second, as captain, his big failure was the fact that he was not able to win any ICC trophies for India as a captain. In 2019, you remember the One-Day World Cup that happened in England. India lost in the semi-finals to New Zealand. There was no century by Kohli in that entire tournament. In 2021, and this was the closest that India came to winning an ICC trophy under his captaincy, was in 2021, the World Test Championship, India losing to New Zealand in the final. And again in 2021, which was last year, the T20 World Cup in the UAE, India performed very badly, got knocked out in the group stages, in fact were routed in the very first game by Pakistan. So if you want to call in and you want to participate on this as well, you can call us on 0120-434-1895. You can call in on the view, Virat rested or dropped. The number once again is 0120-434-1895. On the broadcast this evening, we have Nikhil Chopra, former cricketer, joining us. Shishir Hatangadi is the CEO of the BCA, former cricketer himself. Ayaz Memon, senior journalist, cricket writer and commentator. Vimal Kumar, senior sports journalist, is also joining us. And we'll be joined in a moment by Tim Wigmore, sports journalist with the Daily Telegraph and the author of Cricket 2.0. Nikhil, let me start with you first. I just laid out the current form of Virat Kohli. I'll come to that in 1 second. I want to know, first things first, what's the deal here? Has he been rested for the West Indies tour or has he been dropped?
Without a doubt, Zach, he's been resting. And that rest, I say so because he himself wrote to the BCCI wanting to take a break. And trust you me, and I'm telling you this with a great amount of confirmation as well, come the Asia Cup right through to the World Cup, there will be no experimentation in the side. The blueprint for the Indian team for the World Cup is more or less ready. Come the Asia Cup, then the Australian tour to India, they're going to be coming and playing 3 T20s in India as well. Then once they leave for the World Cup, Virat Kohli is going to be very much part of that T20 World Cup campaign. It's unfortunate, like you were just mentioning, about the dip in form that he's had. But Zach, this is a guy over a number of games that he's played for India in the T20 format. I'm not even getting to the 4,300 that he's got in the 50-over format or the number of centuries, 27 I think, in the test matches. I'm not even going there. 94 games in the T20 format for India, averaging more than 50. He's got 30-odd half centuries to his name. The last couple of years, it's been tough on everyone, staying away from family, and I'm speaking from personal experience as well. When you're out away from the families, and most importantly, when you're living in these bio bubbles that we were with 14-day quarantine period, you are not allowed to meet the outside world. It does take a toll on you. I'm not saying that, I'm being a big advocate of his as well, but I'm just saying that here's a man who's done so much for India and Indian cricket, more than 70 hundreds to his name, T20, the numbers prior to the last year that what you say has dipped. But this man has been rested. Trust you me, when we get to, say, Australia for the World Cup, with the kind of tracks that we are going to be playing on,
he will find a place.
He's won that, done that for Team India time and again. Time and again, he's won games for Team India.
No one is doubting Virat Kohli's greatness. I mean, he's, of course, like I said, an average of 50 in one-dayers and 50 in T20s. By the time he hangs up his boots, he's going to be right up there and maybe the top 2 or top 3 batsmen, the greatest batsman that India has had. But the problem is his current form, and everybody agrees his current form is poor. The larger question to be asked, though, is does this team management have a place for Virat Kohli up until the T20 World Cup? If they do, I guess they need to say that to him, and it would be nice if they confirm that to the rest of us, the viewing public of cricket in this country.
They have.
No, I don't think they quite have, because this whole rested drop business, I don't know, what will it take for the BCCI to say that Virat Kohli, upon request, has been rested for the West Indies tour, and that he's very much part of our plans for, Australia or wherever else. Anyway, Ayaz, yes.
Yeah, look, I think, the question or the issue is very, very valid. It's pertinent. It's something that affects everybody who's following cricket in India, and certainly the fans. I think if he was dropped, then he wouldn't have been playing today, and maybe not even in the last game in the ODIs, because then you don't need to play him. If he was dropped, then you play somebody else and give that other person the opportunity to make a mark and get into the T20 World Cup. I agree with Nikhil to the extent that I think they've got a game plan, a strategy in place for the team that may or will, in all likelihood be playing the T20 World Cup, in which Virat features. Now, whether he features in the playing 11 or not, but I think he features very strongly in the squad. Because if he wasn't, then why should you play him today? Why should you play him maybe on Saturday? Why should you play him in the Asia Cup possibly, or something else?
No, so why are you making that distinction between? Why are you making that distinction between? I don't know if he's part of the playing 11, but he's part of the squad. I mean, Virat Kohli, if he's part of the squad, would want to be in the playing 11, right?
No, but why do you choose a squad then? You just choose 11, no? Jaka. You choose a squad. Somebody may get injured. Somebody has a niggle. Somebody may be out of form in that period of time. So you have that option for a captain and a coach.
No, one sec. Sorry, I'm really sorry I'm interrupting. If you're picking Virat Kohli for the squad, you're picking him for the number 3 position in the team.
No, of course.
He is very much part of your playing 11. He's not somebody who you're picking as part of the squad in the hope that, somebody gets injured, then we can draft in Virat. Obviously not, right?
I think he's getting into a convoluted thing. Why would you play him today?
That's exactly what I'm asking. If you're playing him today, why are you resting him for West Indies?
Because there is an issue to rest him. whether he's asked for it or whether the team management or the BCCI think it's worthwhile to rest him and get him fit for the games ahead, which is the primary issue is the World Cup T20 team, right? Now, in that case, I think if you look at the squad which has been announced for the West Indies, I'm getting a very clear picture of who 15, 16 of those players are going to be. And I'm not including Virat in that. I'm saying the squad is going to be 18. And in these COVID times, it would extend to 20, maybe even 21 for all teams, not just for India. Then, are you going to leave Virat out?
Okay, all right.
I don't think
give me a couple of
Virat
minutes.
If Virat is in the squad, then certainly he's a very serious challenger for being in the playing 11.
I'm going to take a couple of callers and then I'll go across to Tim Wigmore and Shishir Hatangari. Krishnan is our first caller. He's calling us from Jamshedpur. Good evening, Mr. Krishnan.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Jaga.
Go ahead. What's your question?
First of all, I just want to say good evening to Nikhil, Shishir Hatangari, Ayaz Bhai. Okay, sir, my two observations are there. Actually, first of all, this Virat Kohli is a very natural leader, actually. I think if you drop him from the leadership, I think he's that killing instinct is, I think it is getting reduced.
Okay.
First thing. And second thing, in India, there is a culture. We always, what you say that, पूजा करते हैं हम लोग बड़े-बड़े खिलाड़ियों का, माने उनके नाम पर हम लोग चलते हैं. उनको ड्रॉप करना एक बहुत बड़ा इशू हो जाता है हम लोग के लिए, जो नहीं होनी चाहिए. अगर वो गलत खेल रहे तो उन्हें ड्रॉप क्यों नहीं किया जा सकता है? ये उनके लिए भी बेटरमेंट होगा और इंडिया के लिए भी बेटरमेंट होगा.
All right, thank you for your call, Mr. Krishnan. Let me get a couple more callers in. Ashish Basu is calling us from Kolkata. Yes, Mr. Basu. Yes, Ashish, go ahead. Yeah, good evening.
Mr. Jatra Jacob, good evening. I am Ashish Basu from Kolkata. My question to the panelists is that is it possible for a big player to lose form so badly and to get back the form playing international cricket, or going back to domestic cricket is a must?
Okay, all right.
But
good question.
Going back to domestic cricket is like going to the different...
All right, thank you for your call. Let me get Mahesh in from Bengaluru. He's our third caller. Mahesh.
Yeah, good evening, Zaka. My question is to the panelists is that can a session with the Fab Four, namely say Sachin, Saurav, Ganguly, help Virat in the form?
Okay, thank you. All right, let me go across. I think I can go to Shishir Hatangari. Shishir, the question about leadership, and I think it's a fair point. I mean, Virat is a natural leader. Captaincy inspired him to become a better player. Now that captaincy is gone from his hands, has he become sort of a bit jaded, for want of a better word?
Not because of captaincy, but certainly because of lack of runs. And you can become jaded because, day in and day out, you're trying your best to come back into peak performance as you have been over the last almost a decade. And, sometimes I think there is, when you achieve so much, there is a lot of dignity in using the word rested rather than dropped. It's happened in the past to players who achieved so much. It will happen in future to a lot of players who have achieved so much. Being dropped sounds a little undignified, if I may put it that way. But there's no denying that his form has dipped, and he needs to get back into good form to help India the way he's helped India with his top batting performances. But the point I'm making just now is there is a need, I think, for him to take a break because nothing seems to be working at the moment in terms of coming back to peak performance. Maybe the break will help him, but there's no denying he's in good form.
As Ravi Shastri, I think, tweeted some months ago, I think Virat Kohli is brain fried. He needs a break. But let me also bring in Tim Wigmore. He's the author of Cricket 2.0. Tim, some would say, what's happened in the last couple of years also is that the T20 game itself has changed. Virat Kohli's T20 performances were anchored around the fact that he would hold one end up. He would be the anchor man and everybody else sort of battered around him. Whereas now the game itself has changed. You'd rather take in a player who can make a 30 out of 10 or 12 balls rather than somebody who would make a 60 out of 40 balls to hold the innings together. I think that idea of holding the innings together is over in T20 cricket over the last couple of years. Tim?
I think that's part of the problem for Virat, but I think it's kind of deeper than that. If you look at kind of modern anchor players, they can do both. They can both hold things together, and then they can also accelerate, and they've got that kind of upside. And of course, India have three of those who are very, very good. They have Rohit Sharma, the captain, who's obviously a lock in the team, KL Rahul, who I think is very hard to leave out, and Shreyas, who played that incredible innings on Sunday in Nottingham. So I think the issue is, if you have those three players, do you want Virat Kohli as well? I think that's, for me, it's a question of balance. I think there would be room for a peak Virat in one of those three slots, but I don't think you want four of those types of players. You need to have Rishabh Pant and Hardik Pandya in the middle, and I think you probably also want a kind of explosive finisher such as Dinesh Karthik as well.
Okay, so is it a question of balance, Vimal? I mean, as Tim was saying, there are 3-4 different players who play that role that Virat used to play, whether it's a Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Surya Kumar Yadav, and of course now you have others also knocking on that position. So is it a question of balance, because you have to play Hardik Pandya and Rishabh Pant, and I guess you have to play a finisher in Dinesh Karthik, and then you've got the bowlers coming.
Zaka, let me tell you first thing, because I've just seen lots, and over the last 2 weeks I have been traveling with this Indian team, speaking to the selectors, coach, captain, informally, not formally. They are not allowed. The sense I get, I'm not saying that they have told me, but what I have gathered, and this Virat debate is going on, a couple of other players, I don't want to quote them, have just given me plain logic. Virat is being backed by Rohit Sharma, it's not a secret. And why he's being backed? We may run the story, rivalry and all that, but you, from professional point of view, if you are captain of India, who would you take to Australia? First number, Virat Kohli. Why? The reason, because of his record in Australia, the experience. Last time India did horribly bad again in the UAE. Reason was the lack of experience. You look at the Indian batting lineup. You have KL Rahul, not sure about fitness. He has not played too many matches in Australia. Rohit Sharma is the only experienced guy. Then Surya Kumar Yadav has not established himself completely. Shreyas is struggling. Deepak Hooda is just few days, he has just played a couple of cameos. Do you want to go to Australia in such a high-profile World Cup with such experience? Virat Kohli, remember, the World Cup is still 4 months away. Virat Kohli, once he gets a 100, and we are expecting that right now, the match is going on. Today I saw that this place, Rahul Dravid came first with Virat Kohli, and he was practicing right behind here. The intent, the positivity, his skill as experience. So the team management is quite clear. Captain is quite clear. Maybe some of the selectors are not on the same page, and that's why they are buying the time. There was a confusion. I am told selector wanted to say, he's no longer a scheme of things, but they want to wait because injury of KL Rahul. They want to see how Rahul develops. Yes, if Rahul is fit, Rahul gets run in West Indies, Rahul gets run in Asia Cup, maybe slightly. But right now, as I'm talking, I don't see that Virat can be rested or dropped from T20 World Cup. That's very, very clear. If that happens, I will be shocked, because Rohit Sharma is backing Virat Kohli right now.
Okay, let's get a couple more callers in, and then I'll go back to our guest. Mr. Arun Kapoor is calling us from Gurugram. Mr. Kapoor, good evening.
Good evening, Zaka, and all your panelists. I have a very short comment to make. Virat is been one of the greatest captains and players of all times. But he's a ruthless guy. And oh, by the way, cricket is a ruthless game. And if he is down the hill, if he is not in form, then I think he should be the first person to understand and appreciate if he can be dropped or rested.
Okay. All right.
These are all semantics, whether you're dropped or rested. But fact of the matter is, if you're not in form, my friend, you do not play.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kapoor. JB Singh is calling us from Mumbai. Mr. Singh.
Yes, good evening to you, Zaka, and all the other fellow panelists. My question is to the neutral person, Mr. Tim from Telegraph. You see, in India, we when some players do good, we really put them on the top, and when they are out of the form, we put them down. Do you think, Mr. Tim, dropping Virat for such a big event like Virat on the World Cup in Australia, where he has done so well, so it would be a a great mistake from our side. He should be there in the squad, especially with Australia, bigger grounds, with the people around and the World Cup. So what's your view on this? I would like to ask Mr. Tim.
All right. Let me also get one more caller in. CK Subramaniam, also calling us from Mumbai tonight. Mr. Subramaniam.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Form is temporary and class is permanent. How you can make it to the team is very difficult now because he is not rested. I call it rested, R-U-S-T-E-D. Since his repeated failures have given a scope for this. And so Saurav Ganguly, when he took over as the president post, he openly said that India could not win a single ICC-sponsored tournament. When we like to win a ICC-sponsored tournament, we have to remove certain players who are not performing well. And Kohli is under that.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it at that. Thanks very much, Mr. Subramaniam. Let me go back to our guest, Nikhil. This idea that, you know, the Australians, the English, I mean, Ricky Ponting can win a World Cup, but right after that, if his form is out, he's dropped. I mean, Eoin Morgan, legendary, you know, white ball cricketer, he's moved on now. And, you know, somebody else has taken his place. Why is it that in India, we sort of deify these cricketers to the point where even dropping them on such a poor run of form is questionable?
Number one, Zaka, you speak of Morgan. He decided himself, after all that he'd done for England, he decided himself that, you know, maybe it was in the best interest of the side that he was not 100%, that he was not able to contribute towards winning games for his country, for his side, and he took that decision. I personally still feel Virat Kohli still, and obviously has the game even today, and has that self-belief, he can go out there and win games for India, for his team. Otherwise, trust you me, he spent a lot of time under Mahendra Singh Dhoni as well. Mahendra Singh Dhoni, if you remember, in Australia said, Virat is ready to take on the captaincy for test matches. Let me step down in the larger interest of the side and also the country. And Virat is also on the same pages. The day he thinks that he is going to be a liability to the Indian side, he will hang up his boots from that format. But I firmly still believe, and I have that confidence as well, who I've spoken to a lot of people around, that trust you me, you know, the intensity during the games, when he's on tour, the practice sessions, or even when he's not playing for India and he's spending a lot of time in Mumbai, he spends a lot of time in the nets with some of his old coaches as well, with that same sort of intensity that he has it in him to win games. He himself wants to bounce back as well.
Okay.
And coming back to a couple of callers that also spoke about Zaka was, you know, the other thing, when we talk about World Cup, you want some experienced campaigners who win proven match winners in the past as well, just to prove a point and send shivers down the spine of the opposition as well. This man, he gets going, he'll win you a game. And Virat Kohli is that sort of a batsman.
Okay, let me ask Ayaz, so why then are the legends from the past, the likes of a Kapil Dev, Venkatesh Prasad, Sehwag, all saying that, you know, we've all had to go back to domestic cricket when our form dipped, so why should there be different rules for Virat Kohli?
Well, I mean, look, there are, you know, I think the yardsticks is different. Yardsticks are different. If you're looking at the T20 World Cup, there's no domestic cricket before that. So where is he going to go back and prove himself? Then it has to be for the next T20 World Cup, not this one. I think that the issue is getting a little muddled. I think that you have to go by what actually I feel is that how strongly Rohit Sharma, who is the captain of the team and captain designate without question for the T20 World Cup, and the chief coach, Rahul Dravid, how strongly they've come out in support of Virat. If they had some doubt, then they would, you know, they wouldn't be so strong in their, you know, in their support. They would withdraw a bit and say, let's see, let's watch, let's see how it's going. I think that one has to look at it or juxtapose it in the larger context that your T20 World Cup is 2 months or 3 months away, as Vimal put it. And what is your best squad going to be? And I keep coming back. I think that we are making a mistake. We are assuming a playing 11 to be the squad. It need not be the case.
Okay.
A T20 game is extremely frenetic. Somebody may get injured. Somebody may not be up to the mark at that point in time. You will have substitutions coming in. It's a long drawn tournament. So you need a squad which will win you the tournament. And in that squad, are you going to keep out Virat Kohli? Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma seem to think if I'm going just by their statements, certainly not.
No, they're
But
certainly backing him, no doubt about it. In fact, Rohit was asked about it at the PC, I think after the one of the games, and he said, people on the outside don't know what's happening inside the dressing room. But let me also get in some more callers, please. Yeah, let me get in some more callers, and I'll come back to you.
It's going to be a tight finish for Virat.
I'll come back to you. Yogesh Joshi is calling us from Dehradun. Yogesh Joshi, yes, go ahead, Mr. Joshi.
Yes, sir. My question is to sir that the kind of batting Virat Kohli has done in the past. So how easy to selector as well as the captain to drop him, sir?
Okay, all right. Thank you for your question. Rohit is calling us from Udupi in Karnataka. Rohit.
Yeah, good evening, Jacob. I'm Rohit. Like what you said, I would say that no player or member of a team is greater than the team. So if Virat Kohli isn't performing, it's rightful place for him to be dropped.
All right, Rohit, thank you for your call. Mr. Krishnan is calling us from Chennai.
Yeah, actually, Virat Kohli was a great player. Now he is not in form. It is a fact. But the other thing is what contributed to this downhill is he was got in the crossfire between Ganguly and Ravi Shastri. It also made him to lose his confidence and other things also.
All right. Okay, Mr. Krishnan, thank you for your call. Vimal, let me get a word in and then I'll give Tim the final word. Tim and Shishu the final word. Vimal, there has obviously been a lot that has happened, in terms of the composition of the team management. I don't want to go into the past, but the way in which, first Ravi Shastri was let go of and then the captaincy was let go of, is all well in terms of where they are in terms of the equations, the team management's importance for Virat Kohli in their scheme of things? Are they all on the same page when it comes to Virat Kohli? There was also somebody who said on Twitter, Rohit Sharma has an IOU on Virat Kohli because when his place in the test side was not cemented, Virat Kohli gave him a really long rope. So maybe he's returning the favor now.
But I think Zaka, if I've completely heard your question, then I will answer that accordingly because a little bit of noise is going on as there is a break. But what I sense that yes, ever since when I was in India and I was thinking, there is some rave, some stories because being a former captain and then adjusting to the dressing room is not easy. But what I have seen from the team hotels, his interaction with Dravid, body language, Rohit Sharma, other team members, Virat has been his usual chirpy self. I saw him in a couple of nets where he was, joking around with Rishabh Pant and all other young players. It never looked like, that he is no longer a former captain. Obviously, when you are not captain, your authority gets diminished. That has happened with him. And that is something personally, maybe it will take time for someone like Virat Kohli to get motivated because captaincy was something which used to motivate him to, take his game to a different level. So now, Virat Kohli again at a different level as a player. He has to elevate his game, which I think most of the observers I have spoken to, in fact, a couple of times I spoke to Ravi Shastri. He comes around during the commentary box and I asked, Ravi bhai, kya dikkat kya hai? And Ravi bhai just said that dikkat kuch nahi hai yaar, isko sirf break chahiye. That he has been saying, ki agar usko break milta hai, if he gets a break, say couple of weeks, at least a month, which now he's getting. He's not going to play West Indies T20 ODI series, which is good 15 days. Then Asia Cup, there is a difference. So I think we should wait once Virat goes to either Sri Lanka or Bangladesh for Asia Cup, and I'm sure he will get runs.
All right, I'll give Tim the final word because I've got to wrap up this segment as well. Tim, at this level, for somebody who's achieved as much as Virat Kohli has, it's more often in the mind rather than a question of the body. I think one of the callers asked, would a chat with the Fab Four possibly help clear his mind?
No, I think with Virat Kohli, you have to say over an extended period of time, his form has not been good enough. The last two seasons of the IPL, which is 31 matches, is a good sample size. His average is 26, strike rate of 118. That is, frankly, not the kind of modern dynamic T20 cricket that is going to win you a tournament. So right now, the case for Virat Kohli is pretty small. Is he better than those other anchored players? I just don't think he is at the moment. We know he's got a good record in Australia. That does complicate things somewhat. But increasingly, it feels like with Kohli in T20, we're looking kind of further and further back for our evidence. of why he's still India's best team. And I think that case is getting harder and harder to make. Whereas I think in ODIs, he absolutely still deserves to be in India's team.
All right. Okay. We'll leave it at that. I want to thank all our guests, Nikhil Chopra, Ayaz Memon, Vimal, Shishir, and of course, Tim for joining us. Well, as one of the callers said, class is permanent, form is temporary, but form is important. And unfortunately, that in that department, Virat Kohli doesn't have much to show for in the last 1 year. In fact, the last couple of years. So let's see. But yes, I think I agree with the overall sentiment. He should be a part of the team that goes to Australia. And I don't agree with what Ayaz said. He's not going to be in the squad and not in the playing 11. If he's going to be in the squad, he's there because the team needs him in the playing 11. But let's see how this story plays out for Virat Kohli and for Team India over the next 3 to 4 months. Meanwhile, close to 40 hours after he fled from Sri Lanka and a full day after he was supposed to have quit, Gotabaya Rajapaksa has finally sent in his resignation letter. It arrived at the Speaker's office late this evening. The Sri Lankan public that's been demanding exactly this for months has now been celebrating. Gotabaya's exit marks the end of the Rajapaksa clan in power. But all is still far from well in Sri Lanka. The political uncertainty is as big as ever, and so is the economic mess. All right, I want to first go across to my colleague Purnima Murli, who's joining us live from Galface, the epicenter of the protest, the Aragalaya protest as they are known. Purnima, first things first, obviously the people there are celebrating that Gotabaya has sent his resignation. But I think the larger question is, what happens now? What are the next steps? How does a new government get instilled there?
Well, once his resignation is accepted, then the Speaker will convene the Parliament within 3 days. And after he resigns, Ranil Wickremesinghe will then become the interim president. He can be the interim president for 30 days. In the meantime, within a span of 30 days, the Parliament should convene. They should have nominees for the top post, and then they will have all the parliamentarians will have to vote. Of the 225 parliamentarians, we'll have to see how many of them show interest, and then in terms of vote, whether those one of those belonging to the opposition parties, whether they will then get to become the president. But the immediate step is for Ranil to be the interim president and for the Parliament to convene within 3 days, and then they will discuss on the parliamentarians who would be interested to contest for the top post, and then the vote will happen. It was scheduled for tomorrow, but because Gotabaya's resignation came in only at around 7:45, 8 p.m. So the Parliament that was scheduled to convene tomorrow, that has now been delayed. So we'll have to wait for the Speaker to make that official announcement, and the Parliament will then convene. So all eyes on when that will be made official by the Speaker after he accepts the resignation that was sent in by Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
All right, we'll leave it at that. It's almost like a festive atmosphere there at the Aragalaya protest at the golf face in Colombo. They've been there for the better part of the last 3 to 4 months, demanding exactly this, the resignation of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. It's finally come today on the 14th of July. Let me go across to Dr. Ahilan Kadirgamar. He's with the University of Jaffna. Nazli Hamim is a protester and activist. Let me start with you, Nazli, because yesterday when the president fled and he appointed Ranil Wickremesinghe as the interim president, There were protests outside the Prime Minister's office. The protesters were saying, we don't see any difference between the Rajapakshas and Ranil. Both of them have to go. But today, things have been quite peaceful. So have you now accepted that Ranil will be interim president for the duration of 1 month till a new leader is elected?
Absolutely not.
No, I think
what?
Yeah, Nazli Hamim, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely not. We are not in the position to accept him. We aren't accepting. From ever since he has been appointed as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, we have been telling Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe, he does not even have the people's mandate to be in the parliament first place. So he can't be a prime minister first. So if we're going to try to be a president, we won't allow that. But why we gave up the occupancy today, which we occupied yesterday and also on July 9th, to show good faith to the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, because they had been asking us to give it back to the forces, and also most of the public actually had concerns over we are occupying public buildings, and so in order to show them positive note and also to be on the good faith side, we actually gave up all the buildings except the presidential secretariat. But under no circumstances we will accept Ranil Wickremesinghe as a president or as a prime minister.
All right, Dr. Kadir Gramar, what then happens next if the parliament is to convene and find a consensus candidate? The problem is this: whoever has the majority in parliament or would have the support of a large number of MPs may not be acceptable to the protesters at the street. And vice versa, whoever may be acceptable to the protesters on the street may not have enough numbers inside parliament. So how are you going to resolve this dilemma?
Well, first of all, the political trajectory in Sri Lanka has been determined by these protests. I think we have to acknowledge that. It's the overwhelming people of this country. By going out on the streets, they have chased away a president, and they have made it very clear to the political class that they have very little confidence in them, and that the people are taking control of the future of the country. And from that perspective, if we look at what has been the bane of Sri Lanka's problems over the last 4 decades, it is the executive presidency. So much power concentrated in one individual. And we saw that. Now, Gotabaya has ran away, and even today, they're still trying to verify whether he has even sent his resignation letter. So, and over the last couple of decades, there's been a lot of discussion. Even most of the candidates claim that they will abolish the executive presidency. And I think this is a moment to move on that. We are seeing the shenanigans of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe trying to usurp power as a president. It was a deal between the Rajapaksas and Ranil Wickremesinghe that put him there as prime minister. And now he's looking for another deal with the Rajapaksas to save them so that their party, the SLPP, would vote for him to become president. I think Sri Lankans are quite clear that we don't want this executive presidency, which was brought about 4 decades ago by another authoritarian regime of J.R. Jayawardena. So this is a moment, first of all, to abolish the executive presidency so that we can go back to our democratic leanings. And that means going back to a Westminster-style parliamentary system. And I think in the days ahead, that's going to come to the fore. If they have to elect a president, let him or her be a symbolic individual without executing any of those executive powers.
Okay, let me also go across to Dayasiri Jayasekara. He's a member of parliament. Thank you very much, Mr. Jayasekara. You've heard from a protester at the Aragalaya. You've heard from an academic as well. The point is very simple. I think no one in Sri Lanka quite accepts this arrangement between the Rajapakshas and Ranil Wickremesinghe. They see both of them as two sides of the same coin. And Mr. Wickremesinghe is still not quit. He's still interim president or acting president. And I think from whatever indication we're getting from the Speaker's office, he intends to continue for the next 30 days until there is a new leader to lead Sri Lanka. That is not acceptable to the folks who are protesting out on the street. How are you going to resolve that?
Yeah, now he has sent a letter to the Speaker in 4 days' time, we had 2 meetings with all the party leaders, and Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe has sent a letter to the Speaker saying that with all the consensus with the parties, nominate a Prime Minister candidate to me. This is 2 days before, right? And he has nominated a Prime Minister candidate, so he can, out of that, quit from the Prime Minister portfolio and ask this Prime Minister to form a all-party government.
Okay.
Now, tomorrow morning, we are going to have the party leaders meeting. In that meeting, we are going to suggest one person's name with the support of, I think, the most of the opposition parties and the government people who are independent. And we all are going to give a name.
Who may that person
to
be,
appoint him as the
Mr.
Prime Minister
Jayasekara?
of this country.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but who may that person be?
Now what? Wait a minute. Now what Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe has to do is to appoint him as the Prime Minister. From that moment, he is no more a Prime Minister and no more an acting President, because when the Prime Minister is being appointed, he is gone. And after that, new Prime Minister is going to be the acting President as well. And in 1 month's time, the new Prime Minister has power, or in the Constitution it says that you can have a election in Parliament and appoint a new President from the majority of the Parliament members who supported this President.
No, so Mr. Jayasekara, can I ask you a question though? Who may this opposition consensus candidate be that you are intending to propose tomorrow to the Speaker?
I can't tell you now because we have there are so many parties we have to consult with.
Okay.
So as a responsible person and responsible MP, I can't tell you now.
Okay.
We have agreed upon one person, and we are still discussing with all the parties who are not representing the this meeting we had in the morning, and we went to meet the JVP.
Okay.
And in the meantime, we are going to meet all the other parties as well, and
all
talk
right.
to them and come to a conclusion.
We'll see how this plays out. You know who this one person may be. We don't know who that one person may be, and whether or not the MPs can agree upon that one name, and most importantly, whether that one name is acceptable to people like Nazli and others who've been protesting for the last 3 months. I want to thank all our guests for joining us. We wish all Sri Lankans all the very best. I mean, it's a country that we all love. It's a country that deserves a better leadership and a better future, and certainly better economic prospects and a political leadership that is slightly more deserving of that country. Let me now take a quick break. When we come back, right on the other side, there's been flood fury across the country from north to south. We'll have the best pictures right on the other side when Brass Tacks returns.